Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Parent Hack. Once again, we are so happy you are here, and we are so excited for today's topic. This is something that we have been asked quite a bit across social media, so we're trying to really listen to your questions, and it can be a challenging and touchy, sensitive subject. So we're going to talk all about kind of managing holidays, setting boundaries with multiple families.
Yeah, definitely something we get asked about, or just I would say that's the topic of conversation a lot. When the holidays come around, our friends are always asking, or we're always getting in conversations about how do you all handle this situation? This is how we handle it. And I think today is a little bit of not tried and true, but it's something we've put in place and actually used to get a little bit better at um, setting boundaries at the holidays that ultimately lets us not, get into any arguments or have there be any tension or upsetting or disappointing anyone.
Yes, and everybody's family dynamic is different. And some of us have more families to visit than others. We definitely have a lot of people that we went to see and that went to see us around the holidays. And for Cody and I, we are people pleasers. And so it was really, really hard for us, especially after we had kids, um, to tell somebody no or figure out that like we were going to have to rearrange things because our kids took naps and we just couldn't be everywhere all of the time because at the end of the day, at the end of that holiday, we came home and we were just exhausted
Yeah.
and we didn't really feel like we got to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's kind of I think before we really tried to do some of these things we're going to talk about today, we really kind of felt just run down and tired and I don't know, almost kind of let down in a lot of ways. And it's frustrating because people want to see you, obviously. You want to see people, that's obvious as well. But it's very hard to just sometimes put yourself in each other's shoes and understand, okay, we need to do this because of this reason, or so and so can go to their next holiday or whatever. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest revelations we've seen is just trying to communicate that to someone to then understand why you're doing what you're doing or why you're asking for what you're asking. It tends to go a lot smoother whenever you can kind of convey that message, and hopefully these steps will help you do
Yeah.
that.
And I mean, especially most of you all listening probably have children or you want to in the future. And once you have kids, it's just different. You become your own family unit. You want to create your own traditions. You want to do things at your home. And sometimes that can just be hard. And it can be depending on people's personalities and all of those. There's so many different factors that go into it. This is something that we've certainly had to learn the hard way. And so,
Yeah.
again, our perspective is always we've been through this and we're certainly not perfect at it
Yeah.
at all. But we have learned some things that have made a lot less friction between Cody and me and allowed us to kind of embrace holidays a little easier.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, this is not going to be tried and true for everyone's family, everyone's situation. But what this is meant to do and what it's helped us do is to it's all about us and making sure that we enjoy our holiday. And while that seems selfish, it's kind of necessary. I mean, if not, what are you doing the holiday for? I
Yeah.
mean, for everybody else, well, that's not a good reason to do that. So
Yeah.
why are you doing all these things? It should be for you and your family, and you should get what you want out of the holidays and not just feel like you're just waving around and getting tossed around
Yeah, and I
by
mean,
all
kids
the
can only
events.
handle so much. As much fun as they have on holidays, they only have so much energy too, and so you can only drag them around to so many places in one day without a nap and not have massive meltdowns.
Yeah.
So we have 5 things we're going to go over with you guys. The first one is really setting the expectation with your partner, and this
This is
was
hard. Yeah.
this was hard for us. Cody, do you want to expand on why it was so challenging?
Apparently, it's hard for me.
I think just because a little background, Cody's parents have been divorced for a long time. So they've both been
Mhm.
remarried for 20 plus years. And so we have a little more time and people that we have to manage on his side of the family compared to mine.
Yeah, and I think why this has been hard, or I know why this has been hard for me, is that there's tons of conversations happening. There's, you know, if your parents are divorced, you're having conversation with one family and you're having a conversation with another family, and then your wife's families or whatever. It just becomes a lot, and so it really is important to, instead of getting that far into it and being kind of pushed and pulled by all these conversations and all these opinions and views and events, whatever, it's very important that you and your partner sit down beforehand and say, look, this is kind of the typical routine. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. And not so that way you're better prepared prepared whenever you have those conversations. Hey guys, this is what's happening. We have this going on at this time. We'll be at your place from this time to this time, and then we have to go here from this time to this time. I mean, that's really kind of a condensed version of what we've tried to do there, is just say, hey, this is kind of what our schedule allows for. And that way you're setting an expectation up front, and you and your partner on the same page before getting into the weeds with anyone.
Yeah. And I think the big challenge on this one is you each have to be flexible. And this is hard. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
when you get married, I think most of us can remember that first holiday you're married and you're like, but I want to be with my family.
Yeah.
That's just what you're used to. And in marriage you have to compromise. And that doesn't mean you're just always giving up what's important to you. But it means you've got to listen to the other person and
Yeah.
really hear what's important to them too and why it's important. I think
The hell was that? That must have just been something just fell. Okay, that's all right.
lost the train of thought.
You're saying why is important
Oh
to
yeah,
you?
it's
Yeah.
but instead of just saying, "Hey, I want to do this with my family. This is how we've always done it." So this kind of takes us into our next point. But like for me, Thanksgiving Day, I always think of this example because I'm the only girl. My mom and I always grew up cooking together, and that was our thing on the holidays. And when I think of the holidays, I always think about cooking with my mom. And I remember Cody being like, "Why can't we just show up like 30 minutes before we eat so we can stay with my family longer?" And I was like, "Well, then I don't get any of what really makes Thanksgiving to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that cooking and that quality time drinking wine in the kitchen with my mom." And so explaining why things are important to you and maybe the things that you really, really want to be able to do helps you guys stay on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, and the same thing for us. We have traditions, certain holidays that we like, or there's other things that we like to do, and I think just being able to give a little bit to get is going to be your best skill here,
Yeah. And
essentially.
a Cody forehand quote, you always have to remember you're on the same team.
Yeah,
And that's really important to remember because this is a very sensitive subject. I think this
it
is really
is.
challenging for us.
It is super sensitive, but at the same time, it can be a lot easier if you just are on the same page and you're able to just set expectations with everyone.
Yeah.
So point number two, Teresa kind of alluded to this a little bit, but map out what's important to you, um, and the things that you want to be able to do, and also the things that you maybe know that your spouse wants to be able to do, and vice versa.
Yeah. So this was really big after we had kids because we wanted to create our own traditions. There were things that we wanted to be able to participate in every year and our kids to grow up and be like, "Oh, that's always what we do around Easter." So, Easter's coming up. That's why that's on my mind. We have a big Easter egg hunt that we do at the country club. It's always the Saturday before Easter. And so, instead of just being like, "Oh, nope, we can never do that because that's when somebody else is doing Easter," it's that conversation of, well, if we could eat a couple hours earlier, this allows us to be able to do this. And this is something that
Yeah,
is really important to us for our children to be able to participate in and do. We get to see our friends, and that's important too. Other things like Christmas morning at our own house is a big one. We always wanted our kids to be able to,
wake up in their own house
yeah,
in pajamas that we bought for them and open their presents.
matching pajamas.
Yeah,
Cody's favorite.
hey, I'm all about the pajamas these
He's on
days.
the matching train.
Yeah.
I converted him.
So and I think that it's it was really hard for me to kind of dig into this, or kind of align with that mentality of like, oh, we should do our own thing now. But eventually it's like, oh wow, yeah, this makes total sense. I want to create these memories that I had. And while it's going to be hard for people to let go and for people to give you the space to do that, it's very important because that's what we look forward to now every year. I mean, we have two kids now, and we've done the same thing with Warren on Christmas and some other holidays, and we look forward to that. And so does he at this age. And now I see why it's so important. So it's just it's going to be a little rocky whenever you start to maybe lay that out there, but it's important that people respect you enough to give you the space to do those things and to create your own memories and to be your own family.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of takes us into point three, which is setting the expectation with your family. So this is meaning obviously like in-laws, parents,
Yeah.
whoever you spend your holidays with beyond just like your immediate family, the people you share, four walls with. And this again is challenging. I feel like I've said that a lot of times throughout this, but you don't want to disappoint anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really where Cody and I were coming from. He didn't want to tell his parents, no, we're not going to be somewhere, or ask them to change something. And neither did I.
Yeah.
That was hard for both of us. But we both had to be like, okay, well, if I'm going to have to ask mine, you're going to have to ask
Yeah.
yours. And that made it easier.
And I think realizing that it's fair, it's fair to be able to ask people to accommodate. Now I'm not saying you have to move everything and change everything, but I think it's fair for everyone to be adults and say, "Oh yeah, we understand. Let's try and figure this out." We had a lot of problems with just last minute and just expecting people to just show up at certain times, and it's like, okay, so we had to get ahead of that, and maybe way ahead of that, way more ahead of that compared to normal. But we started working a couple weeks in ahead, being like, "Hey, what's the plan? This is kind of what we're thinking," and that was a big turning point. And really, when it came down to the actual holiday, and us being happy and
Yeah.
being able to do what we wanted to do.
And this used to drive Cody crazy about me because I was like, what's our plan? Have you talked to your family? What's our plan? 4 weeks in advance or so. But when you're trying to make sure that everybody can be there and people are married and people have other families, you, you know, in my opinion, you can never really do it too early.
Yeah,
Get it planned, gives you plenty of time to talk to everybody. It lets, it gives you an opportunity to tell them this is what we have going on the Saturday before Easter. For example, for us, we have this Easter egg hunt. That's the only thing we have. Every other weekend's open, whatever that may be. But if nobody is the planner in your family, you might have to take on that responsibility.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, you're doing it out of love, right? Because you want everyone to be able to be there and enjoy being there, not rushing to the next thing or not feeling like, oh, I had to give up something that we really, really wanted to do because nobody could be flexible with us.
right. And that's kind of the part B of this point, is explaining why. Like, always explain the why to someone, because they're probably better going to understand your situation and the scene through your eyes, and just be a little more empathetic. So if you can tell them why this is important to you, hey, we want to spend time with you, but we also have this and we would really like to do this. This is why we're asking to move this or have this earlier. It's going to go a long ways.
So next thing is avoid having one-off conversations, and be confident with the choices and decisions that you and your spouse have made. So it's really easy to, sit down here and be like, hey, Cody and I sat here. This is our plan for the holidays. And then somebody gets upset and they don't want to move something. And then all of a sudden you're finding yourself committing to something that you did not agree to with your spouse.
Yeah.
And then it just opens up Pandora's box for problems and fights and arguments.
Yeah. It goes back to the point of being on the same page, being confident in the plan you decided upon with your family, and laying that out for everyone else to, really either be willing to help and accommodate or not. And you'll tell real quickly which one you find yourself in. But at the end of the day, it's about you all and creating these memories and these times. And so you definitely want to avoid the pitfalls of a one-off conversation, and maybe you told someone this and someone else this, and now you've got a mess at home that you got to clean up. So just avoid it.
Yeah, definitely avoid the one-offs. They never end well.
Yeah.
Last big thing is put yourself in the other person's shoes. And this lesson, I swear, it applies to everything in life.
Yeah, this is just a good conflict resolution lesson.
And it's a hard one because sometimes you're like, oh man, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it from their perspective,
Especially when it's turned on you. Yeah.
But anytime I've been faced with a really challenging situation or a disagreement with someone, and I go back to this, it is definitely eye-opening and humbling sometimes to say, like, oh, I can kind of see where they're coming from here. Maybe I need to be a little more open-minded.
Yeah,
XYZ.
For sure. And this applies when you're the one asking and when someone's asking you. I mean, it applies both ways. And sometimes it's hard to do when you're the one being asked to put yourselves in their shoes. But this is very important. You've got to be able to see things through the lens of somebody else's, world and experience, and be a little more empathetic towards that. And I think asking someone to do that for you is really powerful, and it allows them to say, take a step back really and say, okay, I understand. Maybe let's try a little harder to make this work,
Yeah. And I think instead of just saying, "Hey, put yourself in my shoes," it's kind of explain the situation. This is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like it's not, it's not my fault that I have to split holidays between families.
Right.
It's been a challenge for me my entire life. I really want to please everybody, but I also want to have this time with my family. Like, how would you handle this if you were me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think instead of just saying, put yourself in my shoes, sometimes using that verbiage of, well, tell me how you would handle this if you were me. It really makes them
Yeah.
think, like, what would I do? I mean, when I've been asked that question, sometimes I'm like, huh,
Yeah.
let me think about that a
Yeah.
little differently.
It kind of takes you back. I mean, and I think that's the purpose. Is it's not anyone's fault. I think it's just we so often don't take the time to put ourselves in anyone else's shoes, and we don't take the time to see this this problem or this event from anybody else's perspective. We're just so, tunnel vision.
Yeah, we want what we want. I mean,
Yeah.
we can be selfish, not from a mean way, but it's just we all want to see each other, or
Mm-hmm.
we all want to do those things. And so um that lesson goes a long ways.
For sure, in any situation, any conflict resolution, it goes a long ways. But it's great advice. But we hope this helps. We want to hear from you all, and know what situations you're, trying to set boundaries in. And I would say, earlier is better,
Yeah.
is kind of the thing. Like, I know it's going to seem crazy to some people. They're like, oh my gosh, they're calling again 3 weeks ahead of the holiday. And it's like, yeah, no crap, we got
Or a month
14
or six
places to
weeks
be.
if it's
Yeah.
Teresa.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the end of the day, make sure this works for you and your spouse and your family. And then people are going to be either willing to help or not. And you're going to know which one, or real quick, who the troublemakers are, and who's going to just be able to help out. So,
Don't let things fester between you and your spouse, because that's just going to carry over into a lot of other
yeah.
areas. And so, like Cody said, the earlier you can tackle these things, the better. We always say the hard conversations are the ones you have to have, because if you don't have
Yeah.
those issues are going to turn into big problems.
And the more you do this, the better at it you get.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all about communicating with one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah. Communication is key.
Communication. There you go. Being on the same team.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And remember, we can all go further together.
Have a great week.